In this session, let us see about the next module called assembly. So to go with the next module assembly, I am going with file and new. Let me go with the new file here, and in this new file dialog box, first we have to select the type as assembly. Select the type as assembly, and this assembly module is used to assemble all the parts whatever we create using this part module. So after creating the parts using the part module, we are going to assemble them with the help of the assembly module. So this is about the assembly. So select the type as assembly, and the subtype you have to choose here design. And after selecting these two things, next you can go the name of the file. If I am trying to create here a lathe machine assembly, I can specify the name of the file as lathe machine. Or if I am trying to create an engine assembly, then I can give the name of this file as engine assembly. So what are the name you want, you can specify here. I am giving the name as something ASD. And after giving the name, even for the assembly also we have to choose the required units. If all the parts whatever we have created, if they are in mm, then even the assembly should be created in the same mm. If the models whatever we have created, if they are in inches, then even for the assembly also you can take the units as inches. Now let me go with mm as the units of the assembly. So I am going to switch off here this use default template option, because as we know, if we are going with use default template, then it is going to take the units as inches. So off it, then we will go with OK. And now here by default you can see it is going with inches loops assembly design. Then let me go with mmns assembly design. Then go with OK. Now this is the assembly file. And this assembly main window will be similar to the part. Even here also we are going to have the datum planes and coordinate systems. But if you see the datum planes, instead of ordinary top, front and right, now here because it is an assembly, they are going to be named as assembly front, assembly right and assembly top. Then even if you see the coordinate system, it is going to be named as assembly default coordinate system. So there is a display area with the same similar datum features. Then on the left side we have again the model tree, and by default in the model tree here in the assembly it is not going to display the list of the features. By default it won't display, it is going to display only the list of the components whatever we are adding to this particular assembly. But even if you want the features to be displayed, then you can go with settings, then go with tree filters, and in the display option you can choose your features. Go with features and apply it. Then it is going to give you the complete list of the features whatever we have in this particular assembly. And then you can go with OK here, that will be displayed. If you don't want to display, then you can go with settings, same procedure, go with tree filters and switch off here the features. Again as usual you can go with apply and OK. Now if you see on the top, we are going to have a similar menu bar, and the toolbars also everything will be same. Even on the right side also we are going to have the same toolbars. But if you see here in the edit features toolbar, we got two tools, and these two tools are nothing but assembly tools. Now in that, the first one is known as add component to the assembly, and the second one is known as create a component in the assembly mode. So these are the two tools which we can use here in order to create the assemblies. And before going to use these two tools, first we will see generally the types of assemblies. Now here in the system we are going to have two types of assemblies. One is called top down assembly and the other one is bottom up assembly. And top down assembly means creating the components here itself in assembly mode, and bottom up assembly means first we have to create the components in the part file, and later on we can add those parts one by one to the assembly. So these are the two types of assemblies we can have here, and maximum of the cases we are going to use bottom up assembly, because As we know, first we are going to create the parts using the separate part files, and then we are going to add those parts one by one to the assembly. So that process is known as a bottom-up assembly. So generally we are going to use bottom-up assembly, and in few cases where the dimensions of the component cannot be defined before assembly, so such components we are going to create by going with top-down assembly. And as I told, top-down assembly means creating the components here itself in the assembly mode. Now first we'll learn about top-down assembly, and then we'll go with bottom-up assembly. Let us see few components. We'll create here few components by going with top-down assembly, and then next we'll go to bottom-up. And just now I told you about two tools, and the names of the tools are add component and create component. So by reading the names, now we can easily identify that the first one is used for bottom-up assembly, whereas the second one is used for top-down assembly, because the name of the second icon is creating the component in the assembly mode. Now as I told, first I am going to tell you about top-down assembly. So now here I am going to create few components using this create component option. So here itself in the assembly I am going to create it. So let me go with create a component in the assembly mode. Now select this icon, then it will give you component create dialog box. And in this component create dialog box, first we have to select the type. That is whether we want to create a part or a subassembly. Now I want to create a part, so I am going with the type as part, and the subtype I am selecting here as solid. Select the subtype as solid, and then here you can select the name. You can specify the name of that part what you are trying to create. Now let me create a block. So I am giving the name of that file as block. The part which I am trying to create, I am giving the name for that part as block. So select the type, select the subtype, and then give the name for that particular part, and then you can go with OK. Next you will be getting create options dialog box, and in this create option dialog box directly you can go with a method called create features. I am going to use create features creation method. That means here itself I am going to create the features in the assembly mode. That is the reason I am selecting here create features. So go with create features, and again you have to go with OK. Now you can see here in the model tree the first part is added, and right now the activated part is nothing but the block part, and whichever part we have activated, for that part we are going to get a green color dot like this. And even you can read here, it is telling that the active part is block. Right. Now if you see even the toolbars, in the edit features toolbar we don't have the assembly tools, because though we are in the assembly we have activated the part. So being in the assembly mode, now here I have activated the part mode. Then after activating the part, now if I create any features, all those features will be added as block part. Now let me create here a simple block. I am going with extrude. Then I am creating here one rectangle with a hole at the center. Then I accept it. And what are the height you want, you can specify here the extrude height. Accept it. The first feature is created. Extrude 1 is created. Now I want fillets. So I am going to round tool. And let me select all the 4 edges. Select the edges here. And then what are the fillet you want, you can apply the fillet radius. For the first one I want a different radius, and the next 3 I want a different radius. So first one I have selected in a separate set, and the next 3 I am selecting in a separate set. So apply here the required fillets. Now this is the block part. And after creating this block part, now if you feel that the part is completed, that means the part creation is completed, then again you can go with the assembly. That means you have to select the name of the assembly here in the model tree, right click, and you should activate the assembly. So after completing the part, activate the assembly. Once again we will be in assembly mode. So now you can see here in this assembly model tree, the first part, that is block part, is added. Like this, one by one part we can add to the assembly. Now how to create the second part, that we'll see in the next session.